The first thing I registered was the smell of cheap instant coffee and the wail of a fire alarm I'd heard 1,000 times before. My head was pounding, my back was aching from the horrible office chair, and Sarah-chan was standing over my cubicle with that smug, pitying look she'd perfected over 3 years of hell. "You're still coming tonight, right?" she asked, tapping her manicured nails on my divider. "The team's all meeting at the Meridian. It's not too late to back out if you're scared of a little karaoke." My throat closed up. The Meridian. The rooftop bar. The slick tiles by the pool that were always wet. The railing that had a loose bolt. The exact spot where I'd gone over the edge 2 years ago during a company mixer. I remembered the screams, the splash, the cold shock of water filling my lungs, and the sight of Sarah's face peering down at me from the railing. Not panicked. Curious. Like she was watching a bug drown. I looked down at my desk. The calendar on my monitor read May 12th. It was the morning of the mixer. "I can't make it," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I have a prior engagement." Sarah's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. "A prior engagement? Since when do you have a social life outside of making sure the spreadsheets balance?" I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked right past her. "Since I learned to value my neck." It was a petty, melodramatic thing to say, but I didn't care. My heart was hammering against my ribs as I pressed the elevator button. I had to get out of that building. I had to get away from the smell of that coffee, the humming of the fluorescent lights, the ghost of my own body hitting the pavement 20 stories below. The elevator door slid shut, and I pressed my forehead against the cool metal. Breathe. Just breathe. The memory was so vivid it made my stomach lurch. I could still feel the rain on my face, the push from behind, the terrifying moment when my feet left the ground. I could still hear Sarah's voice, not screaming for help, but saying something else. Something I'd blocked out in the hospital. Something I'd convinced myself I'd imagined that now I knew I hadn't. At the lobby was mercifully quiet. I walked past the security desk without meeting the guard's eyes, pushed through the revolving doors, and stepped into the gray May morning. The air smelled like exhaust and wet concrete, and I'd never been so grateful for anything in my life. I found a coffee shop across the street, a tiny hole in the wall with mismatched chairs and a barista who didn't ask questions. I ordered something with too much sugar and parked myself in the corner, my phone face up on the table. I didn't have to wait long till the group chat started buzzing around 7 that evening. Photos of the team at the Meridian, drinks raised, smiles plastered on faces that would soon be screaming. There was Sarah front and center, her arm draped around Mark from accounting. There was a video of the view from the rooftop, the city lights glittering below like a trap. I watched each message come in with a detached sort of horror, like I was reading about someone else's life. Then the messages changed. OMG. What happened? Is she okay? Is who okay? Sarah fell. I stared at the screen. My thumb trembled over the keyboard. I wanted to type something, to ask if she was alive, to pretend I was shocked like everyone else. But I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. All I could see was Sarah's face looking down at me from that railing, her phone in her hand, the flash going off as I fell. The video came through a few minutes later. Someone had recorded the chaos, the crowd surging toward the pool, the paramedics pushing through with a stretcher. I didn't watch it. I knew what I'd see. A broken body on the tiles. A phone with a cracked screen. A story that would make the local news and then fade away. Except this time, the broken body wasn't mine. I sat in that coffee shop until they kicked me out at closing time. I walked home through streets I'd memorized in another life, past the same bodega, the same fire hydrant, the same stray cat that always hissed at me. Everything was the same. Everything was different. 2 weeks later, Sarah came back to work. I heard her before I saw her. The click-clack of her heels, slower than usual, uneven. The murmur of voices as people crowded around her desk, asking if she was okay, telling her how brave she was, how lucky. I stayed in my cubicle, fingers frozen over my keyboard, listening to the performance of her recovery. When she finally hobbled into the break room, I was there. I'd been waiting. Not to gloat, not to confront her, but because I needed to see her face. I needed to confirm what I already knew. She had her arm in a sling, her ankle in a medical boot, and her eyes fixed on me with a heat that could melt glass. "You," she hissed, slamming her good hand on the counter. "You knew." I took a slow sip of my coffee, savoring the bitter taste. "Knew what, Sarah? That the railing was loose. I warned you about it last year, remember?" You said I was being a paranoid worrywart. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same expensive scent she'd worn the night of the mixer. Her voice dropped to a venomous whisper. You were supposed to be there. That spot was perfect. The cameras were a blind spot for a reason, and the bolt was right where you'd lean. I'd been planning it for weeks. My grip on the mug tightened. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face still, my voice level. Planning what exactly? To push me off a building to frame it as an accident. Why? Sarah, because I got the promotion you wanted, because I exposed your padded expense reports to HR. She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that echoed off the breakroom tiles. Because you existed. Because you showed up and smiled and made everyone think you were competent. You had to be taken down a peg. This was the last one. I studied her face, searching for any flicker of remorse, any hint that the woman standing in front of me was the same person who'd visited me in the hospital, crying, apologizing, promising to make it right. In my last life, I'd believed her. I'd spent 2 years in therapy, 2 years rebuilding my confidence, while she climbed the corporate ladder on a foundation of my misery. You're unhinged, I said, setting my mug down. You need help. I need you gone, she corrected, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. And you will be. I have a whole new plan now. She limped away, leaving me with a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. That the next few months were a war. Sarah was relentless. She'd always been good at playing the game, at smiling to people's faces while sharpening the knife behind their backs. But this was different. This was personal. She fabricated evidence of me stealing office supplies, creating a trail of fake emails and doctored receipts that I had to painstakingly disprove. She spread whispers about me in the all-hands meetings, hinting at a personal crisis that was affecting my work. I fought back, but it was exhausting. Every day was a minefield. Every email, every meeting, every casual conversation in the hallway could be a trap. More than once I wanted to scream, to grab her by the shoulders and shake her until she admitted what she'd done. But I held on. I had to because I had something I didn't have before. Knowledge of the future. I knew she was leaking client data to a competitor. I discovered it after her promotion, when I was quietly trying to piece together what had happened to me. I'd found the encrypted drive hidden in her office, the same one she'd used to rig the pool railing. In my last life, I'd reported it and been ignored, dismissed as a jealous colleague with a grudge. But this time I knew exactly how to use it. I just had to wait for the right moment. The perfect opportunity came during the annual shareholder review. The conference room was packed with executives, board members, and investors in expensive suits. Sarah was giving a presentation on our latest campaign, beaming as she detailed our record-high engagement metrics. She was a star, and everyone knew it. The success is a team effort, she said, gesturing at her slides. But I'd be remiss not to mention the innovative data strategy work I led that really launched us over the competition. I raised my hand. Actually, Sarah, those engagement metrics are a bit inflated. The CEO paused, his smile faltering. I'm sorry. I stood up, feeling every eye in the room turn toward me. My palms were sweating, but my voice was steady. The data she's presenting was fabricated using stolen client information from our competitors' internal systems. She's been selling it to them. A proxy server, a personal laptop, and a monthly transfer of funds that has created a very interesting paper trail. I pulled out my phone and projected a series of documents onto the screen. The exact emails, the encrypted drive's access logs, the bank statements I'd been compiling for weeks, piecing together like a detective in a crime novel. I watched Sarah's smug smile melt into a mask of pure, undiluted shock. You went through my files, she whispered, her voice trembling. You hacked my system. I followed a trail you left in the company's server, I said. You were too busy gloating to cover your tracks. The room erupted into chaos. The CEO's face was pale as ash. The CFO was already on the phone with legal. Sarah tried to deny it, tried to spin some narrative about a rival's setup, but I had her cold. The documents were damning that it took 2 hours for security to escort her out. Her high heels click-clacking on the marble floor, her protests echoing down the hallway. She stood at the threshold of the glass doors, one last time, her eyes blazing with hatred. This isn't over, she snarled, pointing a shaking finger at me. You think you've won your nothing. You'll always be nothing. Maybe, I said, crossing my arms. But at least I'll be nothing with a clean conscience and a clear view of the rooftop. Her face went white, then red. For a split second I saw it flash in her eyes, the memory of that rainy night, the wet tiles, the loose railing. She knew what I meant. She knew that I knew that. She didn't say another word. She just limped away, swallowed by the revolving door. I stood there in the lobby watching her go, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 lifetimes. Relief. Release. The weight of all that fear and anger and grief lifted from my shoulders like a physical thing that they say a body can remember a trauma you've forgotten. My body remembered the impact, the crushing blow to my ribs, the sensation of drowning in the middle of a city I'd thought was safe. For months after I woke up in that hospital bed, I'd wake up gasping in the middle of the night, my hands clawing at my own chest, convinced I was still falling. But this time, I didn't fall. I walked back to my desk, past the hushed whispers and curious stares, and sat down. I opened my email, cleared my inbox, and started planning my next move. Not revenge. Not survival. Just the simple, radical act of living. A year later, I sat in the corner office with the fancy title and the window overlooking the city. The board had recognized my quick thinking and integrity, with a massive bonus and a promotion. My work wasn't just about spreadsheets anymore. I was setting strategy, leading my own team, making decisions that would guide the company for the next decade. I'd become the woman Sarah tried so desperately to destroy that I hadn't thought about her in months. Not really. She was a ghost from a life I'd chosen to leave behind. A life where I was a victim, where I let fear and self-doubt steer my path. I had a new name in the company directory, a new apartment with a doorman, and a therapist who was teaching me how to let go of the things I couldn't change. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single photo attached. It was a picture of me, taken from across the street, walking out of the office building. The timestamp was from earlier that afternoon. Below the photo, a caption. Nice view from the ground floor. I'll be watching. I stared at the screen. The cold panic surged through me, familiar and unwelcome. I could feel the phantom sensation of a hand on my back, a shove into the void. But then I breathed. I exhaled. I deleted the message, blocked the number, and pocketed my phone. She was gone. She had no power here. But as I walked back to my desk, I couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't over. That the woman who'd planned my murder, who'd spent months trying to destroy my reputation, wasn't the type to just disappear. She'd said it herself. This wasn't over. And somewhere out there, she was watching. I sat down at my desk, the city glittering below me like a trap, and I wondered if I'd ever really be safe. If a second chance was enough to outrun someone who'd already proven she'd stop at nothing to see me fall. The phone in my pocket was silent, but I could still feel its weight. A reminder that the past doesn't stay buried. That some ghosts come back. And next time, they might not send a warning. The text from the unknown number sat in my blocked messages folder for 3 days before I finally worked up the nerve to look at it again. I told myself it was nothing. A prank. A coincidence. Someone who'd seen me on the news after the shareholder meeting and decided to have a little fun. But I knew better. The photo was too clean, too deliberate. It was taken from across the street, but the angle was perfect, capturing my face in sharp detail as I walked through the revolving doors. That wasn't luck. That was patience. I deleted it again. Then I went to work. The new corner office had floor-to-ceiling windows that made me feel like I was floating above the city. I'd spent my first week in here just staring out at the skyline, trying to convince myself that I deserved it, that I'd earned it. But some part of me still expected to wake up back in that cubicle, back in that hospital bed, back in the cold water of the pool on that rainy night. I was still learning to trust the present. The morning started like any other. I reviewed the quarterly reports, approved a budget request from marketing, and fired off a dozen emails before my first coffee. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Then the plant arrived. It was delivered by a courier I didn't recognize. A scrawny kid with a nose ring who shoved a cardboard box into my arms and vanished before I could ask who'd sent it. I carried it to my desk, my hands already trembling, and peeled back the tape. Inside was a potted orchid. White petals, delicate stems, the kind of flower you'd see in a hospital room. Tucked beneath the leaves was a note on plain white cardstock, written in neat, Precise handwriting that I knew better than my own. New office, same view. I can still see you from here. I dropped the note like it was on fire. My first instinct was to call security, to report the harassment, to file a restraining order, to do everything I should have done the first time she sent a threat. But I knew Sarah. She was too careful for that. The courier was untraceable, the note was generic, and the orchid could have come from any florist in the city. I'd look paranoid. I'd look unstable. Exactly what she wanted. I threw the whole thing in the trash and went back to my spreadsheets. But I couldn't focus. Every time I looked up, I imagined her face in the window across the street. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. The office felt smaller, the walls closer, the air thinner. I was suffocating in a room that had taken me months to earn. That afternoon, I ran into Mark from accounting in the elevator. He looked at me with that same hesitant expression everyone had been wearing since the shareholder meeting, part curiosity, part fear, like I was a bomb waiting to go off. "Hey," he said, shuffling his feet. "I heard about the plant. You okay?" I blinked. "How did you hear about the plant?" He shrugged. "People talk. The courier was pretty loud about it. Kind of a weird gift, don't you think? Who sends flowers to someone's office without a card?" "There was a card," I said, my voice flat. "Just a generic congratulations. Nothing special." He nodded slowly, but his eyes told me he didn't believe it. Mark had always been sharper than people gave him credit for. He'd been there the night of the mixer, too. He'd seen the way Sarah acted around me, the little digs, the pointed comments that everyone else laughed off as harmless. "Look," he said, lowering his voice as the elevator descended. "I know you and Sarah had your issues. Everyone knew. But there's something I never told anyone. That night at the Meridian, I saw her messing with the railing." My blood ran cold. "What?" "She was out there alone before the party started. I was looking for the restroom and I saw her kneeling by the pool, fiddling with something at the edge. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured she was adjusting her shoe or something. But after she fell, I wondered." I gripped the elevator railing so hard my knuckles went white. "You never told anyone. Would you have believed me?" he asked, his voice bitter. "She was the golden girl. Everyone loved her. I was just the accountant who never spoke up at meetings. I kept my mouth shut because I didn't think anyone would listen." The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. We stood there for a moment, neither of us moving. "She's not done with me," I said finally. "She sent that plant. She's been watching me." Mark's face went pale. "I'll keep my eyes open. If I see anything, I'll tell you." He walked away, disappearing into the lunch rush, and I was left standing in the lobby with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't untie. Mark had seen it. He'd seen her tampering with the railing. He was a witness. A living, breathing witness who could put her behind bars if he ever had the courage to speak. But that was the problem. Courage wasn't something people could manufacture on demand. Mark had kept this secret for 2 years. What made me think he'd tell the truth now? I spent the rest of the week looking over my shoulder. The plant was gone, but its shadow lingered. I changed my route to work, took a different elevator, started leaving the office at unpredictable hours. I told myself it was just caution, just common sense. But I knew the truth. I was scared that the second delivery came on a Friday afternoon. This time it was a box of chocolates, expensive ones from the boutique downtown. I'd bought those same chocolates for Sarah's birthday once, back when I still thought we were friends. Back when I believed the smiles she gave me were real. That there was another note tucked inside. Same handwriting. Same playing card stocked. "Did you like the orchid? I thought it suited you. Fragile. Beautiful. Easy to break." I threw the chocolates in the trash with the orchid. Then I locked my office door, sat down at my desk, and cried. It wasn't the crying of sadness. It was the crying of rage. Pure, searing, white-hot rage that I'd been suppressing for 2 lifetimes. She'd taken everything from me. She'd pushed me off a building. She'd destroyed my career. She'd stolen years of my life that I'd never get back. And now, when I'd finally rebuilt myself from the ashes, she was back to tear it all down again. I wiped my eyes, opened my laptop, and started digging. I spent that weekend hunting through every corner of the internet. I pulled up Sarah's social media, her professional network, her public court records. I found the name of her lawyer, the address of her new apartment, the company she was currently consulting for. I found her mother's Facebook page, her cousin's Instagram, her college roommate's LinkedIn. I found a trail that she'd been traveling a lot lately. Credit card receipts showed hotel stays in 3 different cities over the past month, all within driving distance of our office. She'd rented a car under a fake name, but the license plate had been caught on a traffic camera near my neighborhood. She'd been stalking me, following me, learning my patterns. And then I found the call log. It was buried in the data from her old work phone, the one she'd turned in after she was fired. I kept a copy just in case. I hadn't expected to find anything useful, but there it was. A series of calls to a number I didn't recognize, placed in the weeks before she was escorted out. I called the number. Hello, a woman's voice, sharp and professional. Is this Sarah's new assistant? I guessed, my heart racing. The voice paused. Who is this? How did you get this number? I hung up. But I had what I needed. She wasn't alone. She had help. Someone with access to my office building, my schedule, my personal information. Someone who knew her old playbook and was helping her write a new one. The question was who. I went back to the office on Monday with a plan. I'd set up a camera in my office, a tiny one hidden in the corner of the bookshelf. I told myself it was for security, for peace of mind. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I wanted to catch her. The week passed in a blur of surveillance and paranoia. I watched every employee who came near my office. I noted every delivery, every visitor, every unusual occurrence. I started keeping a journal, writing down times and dates and descriptions, building a case that I could present to the police if it came to that. But it wasn't the police I was worried about. It was the fallout. If I went public with Sarah's threats, I'd have to explain why I knew so much. I'd have to reveal that I'd been watching her for weeks, that I'd hacked her accounts, that I'd been suspicious of her long before she ever sent that first text. I'd look like the unstable one, the obsessed one, the woman who couldn't let go of a grudge. I needed proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof that she tried to kill me. And I needed it soon. Because on Wednesday, the 3rd delivery arrived. This time it was a single rose, red and freshly cut, placed on my desk with no box, no courier, no note. Just the flower and a ring of thorns that had been stripped from its stem, arranged in a perfect circle around it. It was a threat. A promise. The thorns were the message. She'd been here. In my office. At my desk. While I was at lunch, or in a meeting, or anywhere else she knew I wouldn't be. Called security. I demanded the footage. I stood over the guard's shoulder as he scrolled through hours of surveillance, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the click of the mouse there. At 1:47 p.m., a woman in a long coat, her face hidden by a wide-brimmed hat, walking into my office. The camera caught her silhouette, the flash of her shoes, the deliberate way she moved. She placed the flower on my desk, arranged the thorns, and left without looking back. The security guard looked at me, his face pale. Do you know her? Yes, I said, my voice trembling. I know exactly who she is. But even as I said it, I knew I was wrong. Because when the camera caught her leaving, the angle shifted, and I saw something I'd missed before. The woman wasn't walking normally. She was limping. A slight, almost imperceptible hitch in her step. Sarah's ankle was still healing. She couldn't walk without a cane. This woman wasn't Sarah. She was someone else. Someone who looked like her, dressed like her, moved like her. Someone who was doing her dirty work, so she could stay in the shadows. I had a target on my back. But the archer was invisible. That night, I sat in my apartment with all the lights on, the doors locked, the windows barred. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting for another message, another threat, another sign that she was closing in. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think about anything except the rose on my desk and the thorns that surrounded it. My phone buzzed. I picked it up with shaking hands. A new text. A new number. A single line of text. She asked me to tell you something. She says the view from the ground floor isn't nearly as good as the view from the top. I typed back. Who is this? The reply came a moment later. A friend. You should stop looking over your shoulder. She's already behind you. I dropped the phone. I looked over my shoulder, my heart in my throat, my body ready to run. There was nothing there. Just the dark hallway and the shadow of my own fear. But I knew, with absolute certainty. That I wasn't alone. That she was out there. That she was coming. And that this time, she wasn't going to give me a warning that I was the target. She was the hunter. And the game had only just begun. That I didn't sleep that night. That I sat on my couch with my back to the wall, a kitchen knife on the coffee table, and my phone in my hand, watching the minutes tick past on the lock screen. Every creak of the building made me jump. Every car that passed outside sent my heart racing. I'd never felt so exposed in my own home, like the walls themselves had turned to glass. That at 3:47 a.m., I made a decision that I couldn't keep waiting for Sarah to make the next move. I couldn't keep reacting, defending, surviving. I'd done that for 2 lifetimes and it had gotten me nowhere. If I wanted to end this, really end it, I had to go on the offensive. I started with the woman in the hat. The security footage was grainy but good enough. I pulled a still of her face, enhanced it using software I downloaded in a panic, and ran it through every facial recognition tool I could find. Took hours. I drank 3 cups of coffee and watched the sun rise over the city, my eyes burning, my fingers cramping. Then I got a hit. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She was a freelance photographer who'd worked for our company's marketing department on a contract basis. She'd been let go 6 months before Sarah's fall, after a dispute over payment. She'd been vocal about it too, complaining to HR, posting on social media, making a general nuisance of herself until they finally cut ties and banned her from the building. Except someone had let her back in. Someone with clearance. Someone who knew her face wouldn't trigger any alarms because she'd been officially flagged as a non-threat. That someone was Mark. My stomach dropped. Mark, who'd told me he saw Sarah at the railing. Mark, who'd offered to keep his eyes open. Mark, who'd been a witness, a confidant, a friend. Mark, who'd been calling Elena Vasquez 3 times a week for the past month. That I found the call log in the same data dump where I'd found Sarah's. A pattern of late-night calls. All from Mark's personal phone, all to Elena's burner. They'd been coordinating, planning, and Mark had been feeding them information about my schedule, my routines, my office habits. He'd known about the deliveries before they happened. He'd known about the rows. He'd probably been the one to let Elena into the building. I confronted him the next morning. I caught him in the parking garage, just as he was getting out of his car. He saw me coming and froze, his keys slipping from his fingers and clattering to the concrete. "Mark," I said, my voice flat. "We need to talk." He tried to smile. It came out as a grimace. "Hey, I was just about to head up. Big meeting today, you know how it is." "I know exactly how it is," I said. "I know about Elena. I know about the calls. I know you've been helping her." The color drained from his face. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." He looked around the garage, like he was checking for witnesses. Then he sagged against his car, all the fight draining out of him in a single breath. "She came to me first," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "After the shareholder meeting. She said Sarah had proof that I was involved in the tampering, that I'd helped her loosen the bolts on the railing." "You didn't." "I didn't," he agreed, his eyes wild. "But Sarah had photos. Photos of me on the roof that night near the pool. I wasn't even doing anything, I was just looking for the bathroom. But the angle made it look like like you were helping her." He nodded miserably. "She said she'd destroy me. Take those photos to the police, to the press, to everyone. She said the only way I could prove my innocence was to help her. Get back at you. Get back at me," I repeated, the words like acid on my tongue. "She tried to kill me, Mark. She pushed me off a building." "I know," he said, and for the first time, I saw genuine guilt in his eyes. "I know what she did. I saw her that night. I saw her reach for you. I told you that. You told me you saw her messing with the railing. You didn't tell me you saw her push me." He flinched. "I was scared. I was so scared. She had power over everyone. She could have ruined me. And then you came back and you were so strong and I thought you'd figure it out on your own. I thought you didn't need me." "I needed the truth," I said. "And you gave me lies." I turned to walk away, but he grabbed my arm. His grip was desperate, almost painful. "Please," he said. "I'll make it right. I'll testify. I'll tell everyone what I saw. Just give me a chance." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. He was crying now, ugly, desperate tears that left tracks in the grime on his cheeks. "You're going to testify," I said, pulling my arm free. "And you're going to tell me everything you know about Sarah's current plan. Every detail. Every contact. Every location she's been using." He nodded frantically. "Yes. Yes, anything. Just please don't. Don't ruin your life like you helped her ruin mine." He didn't have an answer for that I left him in the garage and went back to my office. I had a lot to process. Mark was a weak link, but he was also a source. If I could use him to draw Sarah out, to get her to make a mistake, I might finally have the proof I needed, but I had to be smart about it. I had to be careful. I started by setting a trap. I told Mark to pass along a piece of false information. I was going to be at the office late on Friday night, working on a confidential project alone. No security. No witnesses. The perfect opportunity for someone to make a move. Then I waited. Friday came slowly, each hour crawling by like a lifetime. I stayed at my desk, pretending to work, my eyes fixed on the security monitors I'd hidden in my office. I watched the lobby, the elevators, the hallways. I watched for any sign of movement, any shadow that didn't belong. At 9:47 p.m., I saw her. Elena Vasquez, walking through the lobby with a confidence that made my blood boil. She was wearing the same hat, the same long coat, the same deliberate stride. She swiped a keycard at the elevator, a keycard that had Mark's name on it, and disappeared from view. I watched the elevator climb to my floor. I watched her step out into the hallway. I watched her approach my office door, then I heard the knock. I didn't answer. I let her stand there for a full minute, knocking again, harder this time. Then I heard her try the handle. I'd left it unlocked on purpose. The door swung open. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room. She saw me sitting at my desk, my hands folded in front of me, my expression calm. "Elena," I said. "I've been expecting you." She froze, her hand reaching for something in her coat pocket. "You know my name. I know a lot of things. I know Sarah hired you. I know Mark gave you access to the building. I know you've been delivering her messages." She laughed, a harsh, brittle sound that echoed off the walls. "You think you're so clever. You think you've got it all figured out." "I have enough," I said. "The police are on their way. They've already been told about the keycard, the footage, the harassment. You're going to jail, Elena." Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't have let me get this close if you had proof." I smiled. "I don't need proof. I need a confession." And then I pressed a button under my desk. The lights in the office went out, plunging us into darkness. I heard her gasp, heard her stumble forward, heard her reach for me in the blackness. I was ready. I grabbed her arm, twisted it behind her back and pinned her against the desk. She fought back, scratching and kicking, but I was stronger. I'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. I'd been training, working out, building the strength I'd need to defend myself. "Tell me where she is," I said, my voice cold. "Tell me or I'll break your arm." She laughed again, a wet, ragged sound. "You think I'm scared of you? You're nothing. You're a pawn. Sarah's been playing you from the start." "Where is she?" "Everywhere," Elena hissed. "She's everywhere. She's been watching you since the day you walked out of that building. She knows where you live, where you work, where you sleep. She knows everything." I tightened my grip. "Then she knows I'm not afraid of her anymore." Elena laughed in my face. "Then she knows you're a fool." The lights flickered back on. I blinked, momentarily blinded, and in that split second, Elena twisted free. She ran for the door, but I was faster. I caught her by the coat, yanked her back, and sent her sprawling to the floor. She looked up at me, her eyes wild, her lip bleeding. "You're making a mistake. She's going to destroy you. She's going to destroy everyone you care about." "She can try," I said, "but she won't succeed, because I'm going to find her first." I dragged Elena to her feet and marched her out of the office. The police were already in the lobby, 2 uniformed officers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I handed her over and gave them my statement. But as I watched them lead her away, I knew the real battle was still ahead. Sarah was out there, and she wasn't going to stop. The next morning, I got another text. This time it was a video. A short clip filmed from across the street, showing my apartment building. The camera zoomed in on my window, my bedroom window, where I'd been standing just hours before. A message appeared on the screen that, "You're getting closer. But not close enough. Try again." I stared at the video, my heart pounding. She'd been watching me. She'd seen Elena get arrested. She'd seen everything. And she was still playing games. But this time, I had something I didn't have before. I had Elena's testimony. I had Mark's confession. I had a paper trail that stretched back years. And I had the truth. I looked at my phone, at Sarah's message, and I made a decision that it was time to stop running. Time to stop hiding. Time to fight back in a way she'd never expect. I typed out a reply that, "I'm not trying to get close to you. I'm trying to get ahead of you. And I already am." I hit send. Then I started planning my next move. Because I knew, with absolute certainty, that the next time we met, only one of us would walk away. And I was done being the one who fell. The reply came 3 hours later. I was sitting in my apartment, the blinds drawn, my laptop open to a map of the city. I'd marked every location I knew Sarah had visited, every hotel she'd stayed in, every street she'd been caught on camera. The dots formed a rough circle around my neighborhood, a perimeter of surveillance that tightened with each passing day. My phone buzzed. I picked it up, my hand steady for the first time in weeks. Bold words for someone who can't sleep with the lights off. I didn't flinch. She was right, of course. I hadn't slept properly since the rose appeared on my desk. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much she'd gotten under my skin. Bold words for someone who hires other people to do their dirty work. "Where are you, Sarah? Too scared to face me yourself?" The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She was thinking about her response. She was trying to figure out my angle, my strategy, my weakness. I let her wait. "You think you're so clever. You think you've won. But you don't even know what game we're playing." I smiled. "I know exactly what game we're playing. The one where you try to destroy me and I keep getting back up. The one where you fall and I don't. That game. Keep telling yourself that. While you still can." The messages stopped. I stared at the screen, waiting for more, but she'd gone silent. That was fine. I'd gotten what I wanted. I'd made her angry. Angry people made mistakes. And I was counting on her to make one. The next few days were a blur of preparation. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled former cop named Frank who'd worked on corporate fraud cases before. He was expensive, but he was good. Within 48 hours, he'd dug up a list of properties Sarah had rented over the past 6 months. She'd been moving constantly, switching apartments every few weeks, covering her tracks like a professional. But she'd made a mistake. One of the properties was a storage unit, rented under a fake name but paid for with a credit card that traced back to her mother's account. The unit was in an industrial part of town, far from the office, far from any residential area. It was the kind of place you used to hide things you didn't want anyone to find. I decided to pay it a visit. I went alone. I told no one, not Frank, not the police, not even Mark. This was between me and Sarah. It had always been between me and Sarah. The storage facility was a maze of rusted units and flickering fluorescent lights. I found the unit number, a padlock on the door that looked new. I'd brought bolt cutters, but I didn't need them. The lock opened with a click, cheap and flimsy, like she'd expected me to find it. The door rolled up with a screech of metal. Inside was a small room, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, crammed with boxes and files and equipment. I flicked on my phone's flashlight and started to dig. What I found made my blood run cold. There were photos of me. Dozens of them dating back months, some from before I'd even been reborn. Photos of me walking to work, eating lunch, sitting in my apartment. Photos of me sleeping, taken through my window with a telephoto lens. Photos of me in the hospital from my first life, the one I tried so hard to forget. She'd been watching me for years. Long before the mixer. Long before I'd ever suspected anything. There were other things, too. A map of my building with exit routes marked in red. A list of my passwords, most of them guessed, some of them stolen. A folder of fabricated evidence, the same fake emails and doctored receipts she tried to use against me. And then I found the laptop. It was old, battered, covered in stickers. I opened it, praying it wasn't password protected. It wasn't. Sarah had been careless or arrogant or both. The desktop was a mess of folders and files. I scrolled through them, my heart pounding. Contracts, emails, financial statements. And then I found the folder labeled, The Meridian. I opened it. Inside were photos of the rooftop taken from every angle. Photos of the railing, the bolt, the pool. Photos of the crowd, the mixer, the chaos. And a video file, timestamped the night I died. I clicked play. The footage was grainy, shot from a cell phone in someone's hand. But it was clear enough. Clear enough to see Sarah's face as she reached for the bolt, her fingers working it loose. Clear enough to see me walk past, oblivious. Clear enough to see her hand extend. To see her fingers brush my back. To see me stumble and fall. Clear enough to see her smile. I watched it 3 times. Each time, I felt something break inside me. The last shred of doubt, the last flicker of hope that she'd been somehow justified, somehow misled. There was no justification. There was no misunderstanding. She'd pushed me off a building and she'd liked it. I closed the laptop, tucked it under my arm, and walked out of the storage unit. The sun was setting by the time I got back to my apartment. I sat on the couch, the laptop on my knees, and I made a decision. I was done with subtlety. I was done with games. It was time to end this. I sent Sarah a message. No preamble. No threats. Just a single line. I found the laptop. I found the video. It's over. The reply came instantly. You're lying. There's no video. Want to bet? I sent her a screenshot, a single frame from the footage. Her face, mid-smile. Her hand extended toward my back. It was damning. It was undeniable. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She was panicking. Good. Where are you? Doesn't matter. The police have it now. They're on their way to your mother's house. You're lying. Try me. There was a long pause. I could picture her, pacing her apartment, her mind racing, trying to figure out her next move. Then she called. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. Hello, Sarah. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the fear underneath it. What do you want? I want you to stop. Stop what? Stop pretending you're the victim. Stop acting like I'm the one who wronged you. You tried to kill me. You've been trying to destroy my life for years. And I'm done letting you. She laughed, a hollow sound. You think you can stop me? You don't know what I'm capable of. I know exactly what you're capable of, I said. I've seen the video. I've seen the photos. I've seen everything. Then you know I'm not going to let you walk away. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm standing my ground. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Everyone, she laughed again. Who's going to believe you? You're the one who hacked into my files. You're the one who's been stalking me. You're the one who looks obsessed. I have proof. Proof that you fabricated. Proof that you stole. You think the police are going to take your word over mine? You think anyone's going to believe you? I didn't answer. She was right in a way. The evidence was damning, but it was also illegally obtained. If I went to the police, I'd be incriminating myself. I needed another way. I needed her to confess. You're right, I said, my voice flat. The police won't believe me. But there are other people who will. Other people who've seen what you do, what you're capable of. People who are scared of you, but who'll talk if they have to. Name one. A Mark. She laughed. Mark's a coward. He'd never testify against me. He already has. I lied. He gave a statement to the police this morning. He told them everything about the railing, about Elena, about you. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, faster now, uneven. You're bluffing. I'm not bluffing. He's tired of being scared. He's tired of your threats. He wants to do the right thing. You're lying. Am I? Another pause. Then she said, I want to meet. In person. No police, no witnesses. Just you and me. I hesitated. This was what I'd been waiting for, but now that it was here, I felt a flicker of fear. She was dangerous. Unpredictable. Meeting her alone was a risk. But it was the only way. Where? The Meridian. The rooftop. 1 hour. The phone went dead. I sat there for a long moment, the phone still in my hand, my heart pounding. The Meridian. The same place she'd tried to kill me. The same rooftop, the same railing, the same pool. She was taunting me, daring me to show up. And I was going to do it. I called Frank, my investigator, and told him where I was going. I told him to wait 15 minutes, then send the police. I told him to bring the video, the photos, everything I'd found. Then I got in my car and drove. The Meridian was the same as I remembered. The same bright lights, the same rooftop bar, the same pool with the same slick tiles. I walked through the lobby, past the same doorman, the same elevator, the same hallway that led to the roof. And there she was. Sarah was standing by the railing, the same railing she'd loosened months ago. Her arm was out of the sling, but she was still limping slightly, her ankle not fully healed. She was wearing a white dress, like she'd dressed for a party, like she was expecting to celebrate. "You came," she said, her voice soft. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here," I said. "Let's finish this." She smiled. It was the same smile I'd seen in the video, the same smile she'd worn as I fell. "You know," she said, turning to look at the city below, "I never really hated you. I hated what you represented. The way you just succeeded. The way everyone loved you. The way you made it look easy." "It wasn't easy," I said. "You made it impossible." "I know," she said. "That was the point. I wanted to see how much you could take. I wanted to see you break. You almost succeeded. Almost." She laughed. "But you came back. You always come back. It's like you're a cockroach. It's like I'm a survivor." She turned to face me, her eyes gleaming. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to admit it. I want you to tell me the truth. And then what, you'll forgive me, you'll let me walk away." Something like that. She stepped closer. I could smell her perfume, the same expensive scent she'd worn the night of the mixer. She reached out, her fingers brushing my sleeve. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never meant for things to get this far." I didn't believe her. Not for a second, but I let her talk. "I was jealous," she continued. "You were everything I wasn't. Smart, talented, well-liked. And I was just me. The girl who had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition." "That's not true." "It is true. You don't know what it's like. You've never had to fight for anything." I wanted to laugh. I'd fought for everything. My job, my reputation, my life. But I held my tongue. "So I started planning," she said. "Small things at first. Rumors. Little sabotages. But it wasn't enough. I wanted to destroy you. I wanted to take everything away. And you did. You took my career, my confidence, my future." "Almost," she said. "But not quite." She reached into her pocket. I tensed, ready for anything, but she pulled out a phone. Her phone. The one she'd dropped on the rooftop, the one that had recorded the fault. "I kept it," she said. "As a souvenir. I watch it sometimes, when I need a reminder. A reminder of what I did. Of what I'm capable of." "Then why?" I asked. "Why did you do it?" "Because I could," she said. "Because the world is full of people like you, people who think they're special. And I wanted to prove that no one's untouchable." I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit her. But I stayed calm. "You're wrong," I said. "About everything." "Am I?" "Yes. I'm not special. I'm not untouchable. But I'm not alone either." Her face flickered. Confusion. Surprise. And then the doors behind her burst open. Frank, the police, a dozen people in uniforms, pouring onto the rooftop. Sarah's eyes went wide. She tried to run, but her ankle gave out, sending her crumpling to the ground. I watched them handcuff her, read her rights, drag her away. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at me, her eyes empty like she'd already lost. The police took the phone, the video, everything. They assured me they'd build a case. They assured me she'd be held accountable. But as I walked back down the stairs, leaving the rooftop behind, I didn't feel any triumph. I didn't feel any victory, I just felt tired. The next week was a blur of statements and interviews and legal meetings. I testified against Sarah in a preliminary hearing. I showed them the storage unit, the photos, the videos. I told them everything. And then finally, it was over. I sat in my apartment, the blinds open for the first time in weeks. I watched the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. I was alone. I was free. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was safe. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The fall, the hospital, the recovery, the rebirth, the fight, the confrontation. I thought about all the pain and fear and anger I'd carried with me for so long. And I decided it was time to let it go. I wasn't defined by what Sarah had done to me. I was defined by how I'd survived. I was defined by the person I'd become. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city. It was beautiful, full of promise, full of hope. I wasn't the same woman who'd walked into that office years ago. I wasn't the same woman who'd fallen off that rooftop. I was stronger, wiser, more resilient. I was ready to start living again. The phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick it up. Hello, a voice I didn't recognize. Miss Chen's lawyer. I've been asked to deliver a message. My heart lurched. What is it? She says she'll see you in the next life. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my blood cold. She was still fighting. Even from behind bars. Even with everything I'd done to stop her. I set the phone down and took a deep breath. It wasn't over. Not really. Maybe it would never be over. But that was okay. I'd faced her before. Ide surviva. I'd won. And I would keep winning, every single day, for the rest of my life. Because I wasn't a victim. I was a survivor. And nothing was going to change that. The phone call from Sarah's lawyer should have been the end of it. Should have been the final, desperate gasp of a woman who'd lost everything. I told myself that as I hung up, as I blocked the number, as I went back to my life. But the words stuck with me. She says she'll see you in the next life. It was such a theatrical thing to say. So perfectly Sarah. Even behind bars. Even with her world crumbling around her. She couldn't resist a dramatic exit line. I told myself it was meaningless. A parting shot from a bitter woman who'd finally run out of ammunition. I was wrong. The first sign came 3 weeks later. I was at my desk, reviewing the quarterly projections, when my phone lit up with a news alert. A local story, nothing major. A fire in an industrial building on the outskirts of town. The fire department had contained it quickly, no injuries reported. I almost scrolled past it. But something made me click. The address was familiar. My stomach dropped as I recognized the street, the building, the unit number. It was the storage facility. The one where I'd found Sarah's laptop, her photos, her video. The one where I'd uncovered the evidence that finally put her away. The fire had started in a single unit. The unit I'd rented. The unit that had been the centerpiece of my case against her. I called the fire department, my hands shaking. They told me the cause was still under investigation. But there were signs of accelerant. Someone had deliberately set the fire. Someone who knew exactly what was in that unit. Someone who wanted to destroy the evidence. I called Frank, my investigator, and told him what had happened. He was quiet for a long moment. She's in prison, he said finally. She doesn't have access to anyone on the outside. Not anymore. Then who? I don't know. But I'll look into it. He hung up. I sat at my desk, staring at the news alert on my phone, my mind racing. Sarah was locked up. She couldn't have set that fire herself. But she had connections. She had resources. She had a network of people who were still loyal to her. People who'd do her bidding even from behind bars. People like Elena. People like Mark. But Mark was in protective custody, and Elena was facing charges of her own. They couldn't have done it. Which meant someone else was out there. Someone I didn't know about. Someone who was still playing Sarah's game. The second sign came a week later. I was walking home from the office, taking my usual route through the park. It was a warm evening, the kind of evening that made you forget the city was a dangerous place. I was almost relaxed, almost at peace. Then I saw him. A man, standing by the fountain, watching me. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face I didn't recognize. He was wearing a black jacket and sunglasses. Even though the sun was setting. I picked up my pace. So did he. I turned down a side street, hoping to lose him. He followed. I ducked into a coffee shop, pretending to look at the menu. He stood outside waiting. My heart was pounding. I called Frank, my voice barely a whispered. There's a man following me. Black jacket, sunglasses. I'm at the coffee shop on 4th Street. Stay inside. I'm on my way. I hung up and pretended to read the menu. My eyes fixed on the man outside. He wasn't moving. He wasn't doing anything. He was just standing there, watching, waiting. 5 minutes later, Frank arrived. He walked right up to the man, said something I couldn't hear, and the man turned and walked away. Just like that. No confrontation. No violence. Frank came inside, his face grim. He's gone. But I don't think he was alone. Who is he? I don't know yet. But he's connected to Sarah somehow. I recognized the way he moved. Military training. She hired him. Hired him for what? Frank looked at me, his eyes dark. I think she hired him to finish what she started. I felt the world tilt around me. Sarah was in prison. She was supposed to be powerless. She was supposed to be gone. But she wasn't. She was still there, still pulling strings, still trying to destroy me. Why, I asked. Why can't she just let go? Because letting go would mean admitting she lost, Frank said. And she's not the type to do that. I went home that night and locked every door, every window. I checked the apartment 3 times, looking for anything out of place. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next morning I found a letter taped to my door. It was on plain white paper. The handwriting neat and precise. Sarah's handwriting. I knew it better than my own. Did you really think it was that easy? Did you really think a few years in prison would stop me? I've been planning this for a long time. Longer than you know. Longer than you can imagine. You took everything from me. My career, my reputation, my freedom. Now I'm going to take everything from you. Not just your life. Everything. Your friends, your family, your future. Everyone you loved. This isn't a threat. It's a promise. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. It's not going to last much longer. I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking. Then I called the police. They took the letter as evidence. They assured me they'd investigate. They assured me they'd keep me safe. But I knew the truth. Sarah had resources I didn't know about. She had people on the outside, people who were willing to do her bidding. And she wasn't going to stop until I was destroyed. I needed to find out who she was working with. I needed to find out how she was communicating with the outside world. And I needed to stop her before she could make good on her promise. I started with the prison. I called the warden, explained the situation, demanded answers. They told me Sarah had been a model inmate. No violations, no infractions. She hadn't made any phone calls, hadn't received any visitors, but they'd found something in her cell. A journal, hidden in the lining of her mattress. Filled with code, symbols, dates. They'd sent it to the FBI for analysis. The warden offered to send me a copy. I agreed. A week later, a package arrived at my office. I opened it, my hands trembling. Inside was a photocopy of Sarah's journal, page after page of cryptic symbols and coded messages. I spread it out across my desk and started to read. It took me 3 days to decipher it. 3 days of staring at symbols, cross-referencing them with known codes, pulling apart the patterns. I worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and fear, determined to find the truth. When I finally cracked it, I wished I hadn't. Sarah had been planning this for years. Not just the fire, not just the man in the park. She had a whole network of people, a network that extended beyond the city, beyond the state, beyond the country. She'd been building it since before the mixer, since before I'd ever known what she was capable of. And she'd given them orders. Specific, detailed orders. Orders that were still being carried out. One name kept appearing. Victor. I called Frank and told him what I'd found. He was quiet for a long moment. Victor, he said finally. I know that name. Who is he? He's a fixer. A professional. He does jobs for people who can't do them themselves. He's expensive, but he's effective. He works for Sarah. He's worked for her before. Years ago, before she even started at your company. He helped her cover up something. I never found out what. Can you find him? I can try. But he's careful. He doesn't leave traces. Find him, I said. Whatever it takes. Frank agreed. I hung up and stared at the journal on my desk, my mind racing. Sarah had been planning this for years. She had a network of people, a network I didn't know about. And she was still pulling strings, even from behind bars. I needed to find Victor. I needed to stop him. But I also needed to protect myself. I moved to a new apartment. One with a doorman and a security system. I changed my phone number, my email, my routine. I stopped walking home through the park. I stopped going out after dark. I became a ghost in my own life. And still, I felt like I was being watched. The next month was a nightmare of waiting and watching. I spent every waking moment looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows, expecting the worst. And then finally, Frank called. I found him. My heart lurched. Where? He's been staying at a hotel downtown. Under a fake name, but I tracked him through his credit card. He's been there for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, 3 weeks. He's been waiting. For you. I felt the world tilt around me again. How do I stop him? You don't, Frank said. Ego. I've got a team ready. We're going to bring him in. Be careful, I said. He's dangerous. I know. That's why I'm bringing a team. Frank hung up. I sat in my apartment, my heart pounding, my mind racing. Victor was in the city. He was waiting. He was planning to hurt me, to destroy me, to do whatever Sarah had paid him to do. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I got a call from Frank. His voice was grim. We got him. But it's not good news. What do you mean? He was waiting for us. Like he knew we were coming. He had a message for you. A message? He said to tell you that Sarah sends her regards. And that she's not done yet. I felt the blood drain from my face. What else? He said she's got more people. A lot more. And they're all coming for you. How many? Enough. He wouldn't give me an exact number, but he said it's not just 1 or 2. It's an army. She's been building it for years. An army. Sarah had an army. I sat down, my legs shaking. I had thought I'd won. I had thought I'd finally ended this. But I was wrong. Sarah was still out there, still fighting, still trying to destroy me. And she had an army at her back. I hung up the phone and sat in the dark, staring at the wall. I felt like I was back on that rooftop, staring down at the pool below, waiting for the fall. But this time, I wasn't going to fall. I was going to fight. I spent the next week preparing. I hired a security team, a real one, not just Frank and his contacts. I moved to a new apartment with a panic room and bulletproof windows. I changed my identity, my address, my entire life. And I started planning my counterattack. If Sarah had an army, I needed one too. I needed people who were loyal to me, people who'd fight for me, people who'd protect me. I called in every favor I had. I reached out to old contacts, former colleagues, anyone who owed me. I built a network of my own, a network that could match Sarah's. And then I waited. The attack came on a Tuesday night. I was in my apartment working on my laptop when the lights went out. I reached for my phone, but it was dead. I heard the sound of breaking glass, the click of locks being picked, the whisper of footsteps in the hallway. I grabbed my gun, the one I'd bought after the first threat, and pressed myself against the wall. They came through the door in a rush, 3 of them, all in black. I fired once, twice, 3 times. I heard a cry, the sound of a body hitting the floor. But there were more. More footsteps, more whispers, more shadows in the dark. I fought. I fought like I'd never fought before, using every ounce of strength I had. I broke bones and drew blood. I screamed and clawed and kicked. And then I felt a sharp pain in my neck, and the world went black. I woke up in a room I didn't recognize. It was cold, white, sterile. I was strapped to a chair, my wrists and ankles bound. There was a figure in front of me, standing in the shadows. You're awake, the figure said. Good. I blinked, trying to focus. The figure stepped forward, and I felt my heart stop. It was Sarah. Surprised, she asked, smiling. Did you really think I'd spend the rest of my life in prison? Did you really think I'd let you win? How? Escape? It was easy. I had people on the inside, people who owed me favors. And I had a plan I'd been working on for years. You're insane, I said. You're completely insane. Maybe, she said. But I'm also free. And you're not. She walked around the chair, her heels clicking on the floor. She was wearing a white dress, the same dress she'd worn the night of the mixer. This is where it ends, she said. Right here. Right now. You and me. What do you want from me? I want you to suffer. I want you to feel everything I felt. The fear, the pain, the humiliation. I want you to know what it's like to lose everything. I've already lost everything, I said. You took it all from me. Not everything, she said. Not yet. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a phone. She held it up, and I saw the screen. A live feed. A camera, pointed at a building I recognized, at my mother's house. No, I whispered. No, please. Please, what? Sarah asked, her smile widening. Please don't hurt her. Please don't do what you did to me. I didn't do anything to you. You destroyed me. You took everything I had. And now I'm going to return the favor. She pressed a button on the phone. I screamed, but she didn't stop. And then in the distance I heard the sound of an explosion. My mother's house. It was gone. I didn't hear the rest of what Sarah said. I was too focused on the silence in my head, the noise I couldn't make, the grief I couldn't express. I felt her hand on my face, turning me to look at her. "Now you know how I feel," she said. "Now you know what it's like." I didn't answer. I couldn't. She stood up, walked to the door and looked back at me. "This is goodbye," she said. "I'll be watching. I'll always be watching." And then she was gone. I sat in that room, the straps digging into my wrists, the echoes of the explosion still ringing in my ears. I was alone. I had lost everything. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. I would escape. I would find her. And I would make her pay. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The straps were cutting into my wrists, the blood pooling beneath the plastic ties, but I barely felt it. All I could hear was the echo of that explosion, the image of my mother's house crumbling into ash and smoke. I'd spent 2 lifetimes fighting Sarah Chun, and in one single moment, she'd found the one wound that would never heal. I screamed until my throat went raw. I thrashed against the chair until my shoulders popped. I cursed her name until the words blurred into meaningless noise. And then I stopped because screaming wasn't going to bring my mother back. Thrashing wasn't going to set me free. Cursing wasn't going to stop Sarah from destroying everything else I loved. I needed to think. I needed to plan. I needed to survive. The room was small, maybe 10 by 10, with white walls and a concrete floor. No windows. A single door, metal and heavy. The chair I was strapped to was bolted to the floor. The straps were industrial grade, the kind they used in shipping yards. I wasn't getting out of them without help. But Sarah had made one mistake, that she'd left me alive. I closed my eyes and focused on my breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I pictured my body, every muscle, every bone. I imagined myself small, compact, folding in on myself like a collapsing star. Then I started to work. It took 47 minutes to slip my right hand free. The strap had been tight, but I'd been flexing my wrist the entire time, creating space, millimeter by millimeter. I pulled my hand out, the plastic scraping against my skin, leaving a trail of raw, bleeding flesh behind. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I freed my left hand next, then my ankles. I stood up, my legs shaking, my body screaming in protest. I stumbled to the door and tried the handle. Locked. I looked around the room for anything I could use. A chair, a table, a loose bolt. Nothing. Sarah had stripped the room bare, leaving me with nothing but my own body and my own mind. I pressed my ear against the door and listened. Silence. She'd left me alone, probably expecting me to waste away in here, to give up, to die. She didn't know me very well. I took a step back and threw myself against the door. It didn't budge. I tried again and again and again, until my shoulder was screaming and my vision was swimming. The door didn't move. I needed another way out. I looked up at the ceiling. There was a vent, small and grimy, set into the corner above the door. If I could reach it, if I could pry it open, I might be able to crawl through. But first I had to get up there. I dragged the chair to the corner, positioning it directly beneath the vent. I climbed onto it, my legs shaking, my hands reaching for the metal grate. My fingers brushed against it, slipped, caught. I pulled myself up, my arms screaming, my body begging me to stop. The grate was bolted on, but the bolts were old and rusty. I worked at them with my fingernails, scraping and pulling, until one of them gave way. Then another. Then the whole grate came loose in my hands. I pulled myself up into the vent, my body scraping against the metal, and started to crawl. The vent was dark and narrow, barely wide enough for my shoulders. I moved forward on my elbows, using my toes to push, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I'd ever find my way out. But I knew I wasn't going to die in that room. The vent led to a larger shaft, then to another, and another. I lost track of time, lost track of direction, lost track of everything except the burning in my muscles, and the need to keep moving. Finally, I saw light. It was a crack, a sliver of brightness at the end of the shaft. I pushed toward it, my body screaming, my mind blank with exhaustion. I reached the grate at the end and kicked it open. Tumbling out into the open air. I was on a rooftop. The rooftop of a building I didn't recognize, in a part of the city I'd never seen. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And for a moment, All I could do was lie there and breathe. Then I remembered. My mother. The explosion. Sarah's face as she walked out the door. I got to my feet and started walking. I found a payphone on the corner. The kind I hadn't seen in years. I dialed Frank's number, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hit the buttons. Hello. Frank. It's me. I'm alive. There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. Where are you? What happened? We've been looking for you for days. Days? You've been missing for 3 days. We thought you were dead. We found your apartment. I know. Sarah took me. She escaped from prison. She's been planning this for years. I know. I've been tracking her. She's got a network, a whole network. I've been trying to find her, but she's too good at hiding. Not anymore, I said. I know where she's going. Where? Back to the beginning. Back to where it all started. She wants to finish this the way she started it. The Meridian. The Meridian. I hung up the phone and started walking. It took me 2 hours to get to the Meridian. I walked the whole way, my body aching, my mind racing. I thought about my mother, about the life she'd given me, about the future I'd never get to share with her. I thought about Sarah, about the years of torment, about the moment I finally had her in my grasp. And I thought about the fall. The rooftop was the same as I remembered. The same pool, the same tiles, the same railing with the same loose bolt. The sun was high in the sky now, blinding and hot, reflecting off the water like a mirror. And there she was. Sarah was standing by the railing. The same railing she'd loosened years ago. She was wearing the same white dress, the same smile, the same look of triumph. You made it, she said. I knew you would. I'm here, I said. Let's finish this. Finish this. She laughed. It's already finished. I've already won. I took everything from you. Your mother, your home, your freedom. What do you have left? Myself, I said. And that's enough. She stepped closer, her heels clicking on the tiles. You always were so noble. So righteous. It's sickening, really. Maybe, I said. But I'm not the one who killed someone's mother. I'm not the one who spends their life trying to destroy other people. I didn't destroy you, she said. I made you stronger. You should be thanking me. I should be killing you. She laughed again. Then do it. Go ahead. Kill me. You're not capable. She was right. I wasn't capable. I'd never been capable of that kind of violence. But I was capable of something else. Frank, I said. Now. The rooftop doors burst open. Frank and his team poured in, a dozen armed men and women, their weapons trained on Sarah. She froze, her eyes wide, her smile faltering. Please, she said, turning to me. Please don't. Don't what I said. Don't do what you did to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Just please don't let them take me. It was the same performance she'd given in the hospital, the same tears, the same pleading. I'd fallen for it once. I wasn't going to fall for it again. Frank, I said. Take her away. They moved in, handcuffing her, reading her rights. She fought, she screamed, she cried. But they didn't stop. They dragged her to the door, and I watched her go. This time, she was really gone. I stood on the rooftop, alone, the sun beating down on my face. I thought about my mother, about the life she'd given me, about the future I'd never get to share with her. I thought about Sarah, about the years of torment, about the moment I finally had her in my grasp. I thought about the fall. And I smiled. Because this time, I hadn't fallen. I'd climbed back up. I'd fought. I'd survived. And I was free. A year later, I stood in front of my mother's grave, a bouquet of white roses in my hands. I'd come here every week since the funeral, sitting by her headstone, talking to her, telling her about my life. I missed her every day. I missed her laugh, her smell, the way she always knew exactly what to say. I missed the sound of her voice, the warmth of her hand in mine. But I also knew she was proud of me. She's gone. I said, my voice soft. She's gone for good this time. I made sure of it. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. But I'm here now. I'll always be here. I sat down on the grass, the roses in my lap, and closed my eyes. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The falls, the rises, the fights. I thought about all the pain and fear and anger I'd carried with me for so long. and I decided it was time to let it go. I stood up, brushed off my dress, and walked away. I left the roses on the grave, a final offering, a final goodbye. And then I started walking toward my future. The Sarah Chun trial was the biggest story of the year. It made headlines across the country, a tale of jealousy, obsession, and attempted murder. The prosecution had enough evidence to bury her, and they did. She was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. I watched the verdict from my new apartment, a safe distance from the city, a safe distance from the past. I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, no relief. Just a quiet sense of closure. Mark testified against her. He'd turned state's evidence, confessed to his role in the harassment, and received a reduced sentence. He was serving his time in a minimum security facility, writing letters of apology to anyone who'd listened. I never responded. I didn't need to. I'd already moved on. Elena Vasquez was sentenced to 10 years for conspiracy and harassment. She'd been Sarah's right hand, her enforcer, her eyes and ears on the outside. But she'd broken under questioning, given up everything she knew about Sarah's network. That network had been dismantled. Sarah's army had scattered, leaderless and directionless. Some were arrested, some fled, some simply vanished. The threat was gone. But I didn't relax. I couldn't. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. I spent the next few years building a new life. I started my own consulting firm, helping companies identify and prevent internal threats. I became an expert on workplace harassment and corporate espionage. I used my experience, my pain, my knowledge to help others avoid the same fate. It wasn't easy. There were days when the memories came back, when I woke up gasping, convinced I was still falling. There were days when I saw Sarah's face in every stranger, heard her voice in every whispered, but I kept going. I kept fighting. I kept living. Because that was the greatest revenge of all. 5 years later, I got a letter. It was from Sarah. She'd written it from prison, a final missive, a last attempt to claw her way back into my life. I opened it with steady hands, my heart calm, my mind clear. Dear Emily, it began. I've had a lot of time to think here in this place. A lot of time to reflect on what I did, what I became, what I lost. I hated you for so long that I forgot why. I hated you because you were everything I wasn't, and I wanted to be you. I wanted your life, your success, your happiness. I wanted to be the person everyone loved. But I wasn't. I was broken. And instead of fixing myself, I tried to break you. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for your pity. I don't want it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I'm sorry for your mother. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it can't bring her back. But I needed to say it. I needed to finally, truly, say it. I hope you find peace. I hope you find happiness. I hope you find everything I tried to take from you. You deserve it. You always did. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it up, put it back in the envelope, and threw it in the trash. I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness, not forgiveness. Just nothing. Because Sarah Chun was a ghost now. A memory. A chapter of my life that I'd closed and moved on from. She didn't deserve my anger. She didn't deserve my pity. She didn't deserve anything. And I was finally, truly, free. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window. The city stretched out below me, bright and beautiful and full of promise. I'd come so far from that cubicle, that hospital bed, that rooftop. I'd survived so much. And I was still standing. I smiled. Not the smile of victory, not the smile of revenge. Just a smile. A small, quiet smile of contentment. I was alive. I was safe. I was happy. And nothing was going to change that. I turned away from the window and walked out of my office. I had a life to live, a future to build, a world to explore. And I was ready for it. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. And I was going to make every moment count.